know who is supposed to take the Department of Homeland Security Secretary role in the event that that person is fired, reassigned, or resigned? Well, there's a succession, just like there is the presidency. And believe me, this is a worst case scenario, so do not watch this video unless you like stories that get progressively worse. So if the Department of Homeland Security Secretary goes anywhere, immediately what happens next is that the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security takes their role automatically without the need for Senate confirmation, meaning that no matter who Donald Trump were to appoint, if it were stalled or the Senate didn't approve them, this person would be the Department of Homeland Security Secretary anyway. Right now, that person is Troy Edgar. Hold that thought for a second. The next person in line is the Undersecretary to the Department of Homeland Security. That person is Benjamin Hoffman. Benjamin Hoffman was actually the very first Department of Homeland Security Secretary under Donald Trump this term, but for 5 days. It was January 20th, 2025 to January 25th, 2025, and it was during the time that Nome was being confirmed. It was actually Benjamin Hoffman himself that fired the Coast Guard Commandant at the request, of course, of Trump and Nome. Keep in mind, I wrote this article back in March, and I talked about the use of deliberate vacancies. It's how Kristi Noem got rid of several chiefs of staff so that Corey Lewandowski could basically run the state of South Dakota towards the end of her governorship. And this is something authoritarians will use, right? If they know that they need Senate confirmation, but they really like somebody beneath that secretary, they could just reassign those roles. So Troy Edgar is cartoonishly evil, very, very wealthy, but that's a different video. He is also married to an immigrant. His wife fled Iran in 1979 after the Iranian Revolution. He also has 3 sons, 3 Persian sons. And you might think that's ironic. That's hypocritical for so many people within DHS to have relatives, spouses, and children that rely on things like birthright citizenship. But I would argue that's exactly where you want somebody that you want full control over. So what happens to Kristi Noem? One theory I have is that she will be reassigned to the Undersecretary of the Department of Homeland Security. And that is scary because the Undersecretary for the Department of Homeland Security oversees law enforcement training facilities. Why do I think they'd put Kristi Noem in that position, and why is this terrible? Well, I told you guys long ago about how she used the Department of Economic Development in South Dakota to create this enormous gun range. Nobody wanted it. And she circumvented certain laws that would have actually needed that land to have an archaeological survey because it was technically tribal land. When that form of funding didn't work, she used the Economic Development Department, which she was allowed to spend basically however she wanted without any regulations whatsoever. The left, the right, the citizens were pissed because why a gun range? And how could it be economic development when admittedly it wouldn't really generate revenue and would require volunteers to operate? Nobody knew, but it was kind of sold as like a touristy thing, a Parks and Rec thing, a way for families to get together and shoot things. She loved shooting things. She even held an event with Ted Nugent for children, and it was about guns and archery and shooting things. It was so weird. The contract was given to one of her buddies. Of course it was. He's going to name the complex after himself. And when he and other major donors towards this law enforcement center were interviewed, they all framed it as a great law enforcement training facility. Now, we know how evil she is, that she likes to shoot first and ask questions later. So I think that this would be a really, really bad thing. This would be the worst case scenario, second to South Dakota picking up another congressional district and her running for Congress.